Hello and welcome to episode 45 of the Xenothesis podcast. This episode we're covering chapters 5 and 6 from part 3 Chkahichdahk of book 2 Adulthood-Rites by Octavia Butler. My name is Richard Acton. I'm joined by my co-host Michael on the ship of unknown proportions in orbit somewhere around Earth.
Hi everyone, yeah, we're about to dock into the mothership. It literally is a mothership. Like, I think Octavia Butler did it just for the fact that everybody calls it a mothership.
Yeah, this is probably the most literal mothership in science fiction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, that's good.
To be fair, like, I'm still a bit disappointed with the fact that we don't know how it propulses itself from the surface of the planet. Like, you know what I mean?
Get up there.
Yeah, because like we know that for normal rockets to escape the Earth's gravity, you have to reach pretty spectacular speeds. I think if I remember, it's like 25,000 kilometers per hour, something along those lines.
I can't remember what the exact escape velocity is now, but yeah.
So
it's a big number.
So I cannot imagine it bouncing like a ball up and down until it reaches that velocity. I mean, at that point, if it reaches that speed and then bounces down, like I think it's literally like a meteor hitting the planet and basically would probably cause a nuclear holocaust on the whole surface of the planet.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we just have to assume there's probably some kind of propulsion. Well, I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because it seems very inconsistent with the way the Oankali do things for it to be like a big reaction mass, like fiery propulsion system. So, I mean, if they have some kind of slick reactionless propulsion deal, then that seems a lot more in character.
It's a very, very directional fart. Like, it's all of it's just, it's like they compress it. It's like, and it just shoots up.
I mean, a biological version of something does also seem somewhat in character for them, but it seems kind of, I don't know, messier than their typical way of doing things. But yeah, it's left mysterious.
Oh well. Maybe one day we'll get to know, or maybe, one day we can ask someone who about like what did Octavia Butler imagine, or maybe she did say something somewhere. Somebody asked her. Who knows? But well,
take a look through the notes in the archive.
Yeah. Well, shall we then start with my predictions for the chapter 5?
Yes, let's do that.
So obviously, the first obvious thing is that they arrive at the mothership, but I thought that they will meet Nikanji's parents, like Chkahichdahk and their grandparents, will see Chkahichdahk again, and that'll be fun, that'll be cool. But no, they don't. They meet actually the Chan's parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the kind of a different branch of the family.
Yeah,
which is we get some new names, some new long Oankali names to try and figure out.
Yeah, to try to pronounce. So that's that. But yeah, I guess let's start with the chapter 5 summary. So in chapter 5 starts with Akin and Chkahichdahk being asleep in the ship when they've arrived, and as the shuttle docked, a pseudo corridor was opened, a narrow passage that allowed them to move to the main body of the ship. As they were walking through, the corridor would close behind them like a sphincter. In the meantime, the front of the corridor was opening, but Akin could not see well because he was so small, much to his dismay. And then when he thought that Chkahichdahk would become female, it would probably be a double of this Akin's size. But who knew? Nikanj told him that he would stay small, but even Nikanj was wrong sometimes.
Yeah, so the whole corridor thing.
Yeah.
Where,
it's like...
that sounds a little disturbing.
It really does. And it actually says here, Dichan tells them that the way they came in is a bad way for humans. They hate it because it feels like they're being eaten, and there were cases of people attacking the walls or even the Oankali because of like the claustrophobic feeling. So, it's... I can imagine if there's like a sphincter closing behind you. Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I'm not particularly claustrophobic, and I can do like small spaces and stuff, but like a biological small space where it's kind of alive all around you feels like it adds a different dimension to the whole.
Yes. If it suddenly decides to clench its butt cheeks and then crush you, and so, I mean, it's horrifying for me, and I'm not going to judge on anybody's fetishes, but just so you know, we're talking about gigantic sphincters, not just. So, please keep comments clean. But anyway. As they come out of the main part of the ship, they found a Tilio waiting for them, a large flat animal. We've met those in book 1. When we speculated there must be some superconductivity involved in it, and then no, it's just basically big flat snail.
Yep, yeah, we went a little off, direction of what we thought that might be, but yeah. And apparently they're quite smart, about as bright as an otter or an agouti.
Yeah.
That's agouti coming up again, our friend from Brazil tree ecology.
So yes, as Richard said, like it reminded Akin of an agouti or an otter, although it was brighter than either of those animals. It carried them through other raiders and through pedestrians, Oankali, construct, and human. Dichan had told it where he would want it to go, and it found its way without trouble, and it enjoyed meeting strange-tasting visitors. T asked Dichan if they will have these on Earth, and they will if there is such need, and Ooloi know how to assemble one. The Tilio was made out of genes from several animals, and this particular Tilio really enjoyed sharing with Akin much more than the other two Oankali. Dichan noticed that and mentioned that the Earth animals also like Akin, to which Akin said that usually they allowed themselves to be touched, but only if he is alone. Literally an animal like whisperer.
Yeah, that's an interesting trait that he has. And, and the other thing is kind of like the way they interact with their technology is so interesting, right? It's imagine if your car was like a low-level sentient entity and was interested in tasting you. It's strange.
To be fair, I mean, at some point, in terms of like the sentience, with the development of an artificial intelligence, at some point we probably will have cars that were like on the what's the name of the series? Ghost Rider? No. What was the name of the car, that series with this black car, and there's
I think I know what you mean. I can't remember what it's called now.
No, it doesn't. But you know what I mean. Like basically an AI, and after you can actually have a discussion with your car, and then so you have to be very polite to it. So it like, can you imagine you're walking, you have a bad day, you sit down, it's like, car, drive me to home, and the car is like, I'm not gonna start until you say please.
No. Did you see the post-pandemic special that South Park put out?
No, I haven't yet.
No.
Why?
Okay. Yeah, there's an interpretation of Amazon's Alexa,
right,
which has some similar properties to you need to be polite to it of a nature.
All right. Okay.
That to good comedic effect, but
I need to watch it. Then. I saw it being advertised, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to definitely check it out. It's probably going to be 10 out of 10, but I completely forgot. So yeah, I'll check it out.
No, I think I would recommend. Yeah, the other thing I was thinking about with respect to the way the Oankali kind of interact with the animals that they create is there's this little comment here that I think is something that Akin's thinking. Humans put animals in cages or tied them to keep them from straying. Oankali simply bred animals who did not want to stray and who enjoyed doing what they were intended to do. And yeah, this got me thinking about that. It seems like this is an ethically preferable way of doing it, right? You're not sort of coercing the animals, but rather creating ones that want to do what you want them to do. But it's it seems like an odd contrast with. I was trying to think of things that we could compare it to, and like lab-grown meat sort of came to mind as a vague parallel, where if you're if as we're getting better at like, you know, tissue engineering stuff, if we can, you know, grow a steak in a dish somehow, then like there was never a cow involved in this process.
True.
Assuming we can actually, you know, like just take an initial cell sample and not have to use any animal-derived growth sera, then like there's no sentience there.
Yeah.
So I suppose what I was thinking about is like, is it better that you have like no mind, or is it better that you have like the mind of a cow that enjoys being a cow?
I see what you mean. Okay, I see what you've connected with this. That's a good point. I mean, what was the name? It reminds me of a movie that recently was released about these animals where they were bred. They were genetically like they were the size of a hippo, but it tasted like
Okja.
Yes, that's the
Netflix
one. Yes.
film.
Yes. That's exactly what this. What you've mentioned is like those animals were purposely created to for the basically taste and just for that. But you know, obviously, in the way it was shown, it was obviously to show a parallel of what happens in like, you know, animals purposely bred for things like meat.
But I mean that's the like the sort of the thing that we haven't done is like we've bred for optimal like meat production and so on. But we've not bred for like
them enjoying
an animal an animal psychology that is like a subjectively enjoyable experience in our food animals.
So that's what I was going to say, that like the Okja movie, like obviously it was what's happened now, but like I can imagine like, at some point, I don't know, how would you even go about to, instead of, you know, when you cut up something and then it brings them pleasure instead of pain? I mean...
But yeah, I mean, the analogy gets a bit more complicated when we're actually talking about food animals, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, say, service animals,
Yeah.
right? So perhaps it breaks down a bit there, but and I suppose dogs might be a bit of a better analogy, right? They seem pretty happy, mostly.
I think in terms of I think that's more a better analogy here, because you know we've domesticated dogs, cats domesticated us, but you know it's still I can imagine, you know, like dogs were useful, right? Dogs were, whenever we domesticated them, it was for, you know, help us to food, you know, catch food and protect us, and then we gave them, you know, place to sleep and safe place to reproduce and sleep. I just don't know if there would be any use for an animal like a Tilio on Earth. I mean, like sitting on one or standing on one that as it takes you to work. I mean, yeah, that sounds cool, but I just don't know. Like it's like having a horse in the middle of a city, right? You walk in and then just like, you know, I don't know if it's that usefulness of it in here.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really fit with the way our technology works.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you could have an animal that was like, you know, equivalent to your car, and that was, you know, I don't know, like a dog brain that was, you know, better at traffic negotiation that was in your car.
I mean, to be fair, I can just imagine some cars stopping by and sniffing each other's exhausts.
Yeah.
And then just running away, you know, alongside, and then suddenly, like, you try to get somewhere, and the dog they start playing around. It's just, I mean, that'll be really fun. Don't get me wrong, I'm up for it. Still, though, I'm not entirely certain about. But to be fair, like, an animal that, I mean, you can. To be fair, the only case I can think of, like, this sort of, let's call it servitude animal. Would be at home, where you, for example, like you need like extra pair of, you know, theoretical hands in your house, like oh, can you bring me this, can you can you like do this, like things, very small tasks that you, for example, you have to do but can't at the moment. For example, I can, like, if you have a kids in the cot, like, can you just shake the cot for that so the kid just comes down or something? It was like, you know what I mean? Very small tasks that maybe something like that. I mean, you can. I saw videos of like dogs being trained to like open the fridge. They had like that and bring like their owners like drinks and stuff like that. So that's that. But hey,
no. But yeah, I think it's just an interesting question, right?
It is.
Do we have? I mean, so I think the thing we can say is clearly wrong is the version of it from, say, to throw in another pop culture reference, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have enough of those in here. Is like in Rick and Morty when Rick creates the robot to pass butter. Yeah. It's just like, what is my purpose? No, you pass butter. Oh my god!
I mean, yes, but there was in one of the recent seasons there was this alien that was basically eating garbage. When in reality it had PhD, but then it was just so into Rick that it just oh boy, I do love garbage. So,
but yeah, that's the difference, right? You're creating a being that's capable of experiencing existential angst and will in order to pass you butter is clearly on the evil end of the spectrum.
Yes.
But is it better if you create one of these things that is just like absolutely ecstatic and gets a sense of great fulfillment from passing you butter? I mean, probably.
But then again, you'll have things
at the same time, is it better still to have created something that will pass you butter that just doesn't have sentience?
Yes, that's exactly correct. And I think the second choice is better, because in that case, it's because then it's always the philosophical question: how small, how aware of the being is of itself and of its rights, right? And the question is then, if we have a very sentient being, like, we obviously have to make sure that it's protected by the law, because we know that we can very easily abuse the system, and it happened many times, not even for animals, we're talking about humans here. So yeah, I think probably it's better in our case not create a sentient beings that can literally feel and understand things. It's better just to make a robot, as you say, that just passes button and doesn't have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, like in a lot of ethical theories, though, like having another mind that's having a positive experience is like a net good, right, for the universe. But the whole question of being able to create minds that have where you have like influence over what it is that they find pleasurable seems like a really challenging meta-ethical conundrum.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's why I'm kind of like hesitating between the one that enjoys it and the one that just isn't sentient, if it can do it without being sentient.
Yeah,
because, like, at least that one doesn't have ethical problems to discuss.
Yeah, I think that's in our world, it's probably better just to go for the solution that doesn't require involvement of any of the ethical approval, because that's gonna be a pain in the ass, and it's going to cause another discourse and a lot of issues, because basically we can tell by history. So it's better just to leave it not sentient and just programmed to what it needs to do, and that's it.
Yeah, that way you don't have to hear it say, "I wasn't programmed for friendship."
I guess let's go back from the conversation here.
Yes.
Dichan then suggests that maybe he could learn from the Ooloi how to look after the animals. We're talking about Akin, having the Animal Whisperer perk. He could do everything except for breeding them. You put in code in here. You control both animals and people by controlling their reproduction, controlling it absolutely.
Yes. I just wanted to kind of emphasize that quote there when they're talking about it. Akin can learn everything about them, but you just can't control their breeding. And it's another one that's reserved for the Ooloi, as you put following it.
Yeah.
Just another little kind of subtle indicator that the Ooloi are the ones who are really in charge of everything.
Yes.
Here.
They're dominant here.
Yeah. Not really all that subtle, but yeah, it's an interesting kind of undercurrent in much of this book, is that like the Oankali don't seem to want to, like, their society doesn't think the Ooloi are like actually the ones who are in control of everything, but they very clearly are in some ways. And it's certainly unclear to what degree the like the decision-making power is actually
To be honest, I can imagine like
available to the.
Yeah, as you're saying, the decision power. Like I can imagine it be like if a being can give you pleasure, right? For I don't know, doing something. Can you imagine like you're trying to make a decision and then like whatever decision you want to like make, right? The Ooloi can steer you by giving you more pleasure towards the decision that it's more favorable for the Ooloi than for you. So
Yep.
It just feels to me that the Ooloi are very, very dominant in here, and they're basically in charge of everything. And you can tell because they're basically, I would say, at this point of the book, I would say they're basically a parasite that really ingrained themselves in this society.
But I think it's one of those things where it's saying parasite might be a bit. Maybe they were originally in some sense parasitic, but a bit like what you said earlier with cats domesticating humans, right? We have kind of a mutual arrangement, right?
True.
There are now there are now a lot more cats around than there would otherwise be, and humans seem to enjoy the cats. So I don't know.
The cats
seems vaguely mutually beneficial.
You sound very
Not a cat person.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the cats.
They kill and eat all my birds.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay, that explains why. Okay.
Just general garden birds, right? Cats are always a problem for killing off all the birds.
They really are.
Watching birds.
They
and
really
photographing
are.
Birds.
But yeah, on that wonderful note, let's continue. Akin asked if he could work on the shuttles, and the answer was yes. After becoming an adult, and because there was always need for people to do this type of work, their bodies would have to change, but not for the first few generations. And by bodies, I mean like the Oankali bodies would have to change to adapt to the work that's necessary for maintaining those ships. Like we've heard about those special type of Oankali that have like the extra, carapaces around them, like the protection shell, so that they can be on the surface of the ship. The conversation then drifted into Chkahichdahk, asking him what is planning to do, and the answer was to find an Ooloi sub-adult. Akin felt disturbed, almost disgusted with the thought that he would have to make a family with T.
Well, this is the thing. I'm not quite sure that it implies that he would be necessarily making a family with Chkahichdahk. I think it's more at the moment about resolving whatever this disharmony is between them, which might just be a question of like the aversion that they feel to being linked to one another as intimately as they would be when just sharing an Ooloi connection, as it were.
I think,
kind of,
although I said, I think I'm saying that, I think also Akin in the previous chapter was thinking about the whole idea when they were talking with Dichan about the Ooloi. I think it was Dichan, about this whole idea, and Akin, isn't ready for, even though it's about to go through he's about to go through the metamorphosis. I don't think he's ready to have a family. So I think it was the 2 chapters ago, talking with Lilith. So it's, I think in his mind, it's still about the family, more of about the bond. But yes, you're right. I think it also implies the bond.
Yeah, but I think the the having a family bit doesn't necessarily have to follow immediately from resolving their discordance, as it were.
I see. So yeah, when Akin clarified on what work will he look for, T wants to gather knowledge and collect information on Toacht and Akjai changes since the Dinzel settled on Earth. So here's a quote from a book. I don't think I would be allowed to do much more. You know what your sex will be. It's as though you were never really an Eka. But I am. You won't be prevented from learning work, Dichan said. You won't be taken seriously, but no one will stop you from doing what you choose. And if you want to help, people will help you. The conversation ended when they reached the law at Toacht and a great tree-like structure which Dichan opened and entered. There they met 3 different Oankali. Akin could feel their scent of familiarity, relatives of Dichan's brother and sister and their Ooloi mate. They were welcomed and the Ooloi, oh boy, Chkahichdahk.
Yeah, I think it's Chkahichdahk. Yeah.
And the full name, oh boy. Ja Chkahichdahk lo lel surahwajacht a toacht.
I think that's pretty close, as far as I can tell. Yeah,
whoever wants to, that chapter, if you want to read it, because bloody hell, I'm not reading that again. Ooloi was very interested in Akin. You don't know what an intricate mix you are, it told him silently. If you're the prototype of human-born males, there are going to be a great many of us who settle for daughters only from our human mates, and that would be a loss. Dichan mentioned that there are several more of construct males and suggested that it should study Akin. Akin, still in contact with it, broke the contact and drew back to look at it. It wanted to badly. Like, it seems that the Ooloi really is making, Akin wants to be studied with the Oankali, but here it says, you say, study me all you want, but share what you learn with me as much as you can. Trade, Eka, it said with amusement. I'll be interested to see how much you can perceive.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's the whole point about the Oankali picking daughters or settling for only daughters seems a little odd. I was struggling a little bit to interpret why that was. I think it might just be because the process of creating a human-born male Oankali construct is like difficult to do well. As I was saying, such an intricate mix, difficult to do in such a fashion that you get a sane adult out of it. I don't know what but it seemed odd that they were, and in tension with the fact that they're so kind of interested in and apparently having a desire to create and understand these constructs.
I think at some point there was a conversation with Dichan in the previous chapter, right, about the construct Ooloi, and Dichan said that the male constructs require more of their human parts in them than the Oankali to be able to basically be born, right, for the mother's bodies not to reject the fetuses. So I suspect that the reason why they prefer more female is because it's possible that the fact that the Oankali would worry about the male part of the human male part of the construct, right? Whatever increase whatever testosterone and whatever effects of the humans that are negative for in view of the Oankali, the eyes of the Oankali. That's probably the reason why. I suspect. That's my suspicion.
And I agree. It's just that it's an odd. This is the same kind of odd attraction repulsion thing that they have going on between Akin and Chkahichdahk, right? Where they seem drawn to understanding and really interested in these construct males, but at the same time they're like scared of making them. But there's an interesting tension there.
It's weird, right? Because it says that T could become a male, and hold on, Chkahichdahk was born out of Agjai, wasn't he? I
think Hajas, right?
Yeah, Hajas. Yeah. Sorry, I had so many Oankali names. I keep missing.
I had struggled to keep track too.
But yeah, he was born of an Oankali.
Yes.
So does it mean I don't remember now? But does it mean that if the child is born out of a human, its sex is already determined?
I think I'm not sure. I think not necessarily.
But so far we had
but it seems as though the males, it seems to be the case.
Because
I don't know if it's also the case.
Because we know that there's construct Oankali born or construct male constructs, and there's obviously females, and then we know there are females born from humans that construct from human mothers. So the only step was then Akin, the human-born male construct. So I suspect that the Oankali-born constructs are like basically the Oankali, pure Oankali born from Oankali, Eka, sexless children, Whereas
Yeah.
in humans, you have predetermination of their sexes ahead of time.
Potentially, yeah. I think there might be.
Although they probably will go through the metamorphosis still, and like the Oankali, but it's going to be different because for them it's more clear of what they will become.
Yeah, it does seem biologically possible for them to potentially go a different route a little bit later developmentally, especially given their additional plasticity that they seem to be able to endow. But yeah, it certainly seems to be the case that they pick for the males in advance.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows what they do
Yeah.
for the females.
But yeah.
I don't think we've encountered that.
But yes, it's just as we were talking in the book goes, Akin wasn't sure if he liked the Ooloi. For the Ooloi, Akin was not a male but a sexless child trying to make adult bargains. They viewed them as children, although they experienced much more than the Oankali that were safe on the ship. The children of Oankali could take their time in growing, whereas on the Earth, those on the Earth needed to be tough as nails, and then Akin was a prime example of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with his abduction and survival and all of the rest of it.
Yep.
So yeah, he's more mature.
Yeah.
In mentally than the Oankali children that this Ooloi is used to encountering.
Exactly. So Akin, this is an excerpt from the book. Akin looked at each other. How can it be good for me to be treated as though I were younger than I am? He asked. What lesson is condensation supposed to teach me about this group of my people? He would not have spoken so bluntly if Lilith had been with him. She insisted on more respect for adults. Dichan, though, simply answered his question as he expected. Teach them who you are. Now they only know what you are, both of you. He focused for a moment on Chkahichdahk. You are here to teach as well as to learn. Which was just about what Chkahichdahk has said, and Chkahichdahk had said as though to a much younger child. So yeah, it's, like this whole concept of like children not being listened to at all, with Akin probably having much more experience than a lot of the Oankali that are on the ship.
Yeah, it's there's another thing with the Ooloi and the way the Ooloi kind of have power, right? They always seem. We had Chkahichdahk, who was very condescending, and we have Chkahichdahk, who is also apparently very condescending. Nikanj doesn't seem as bad, but still had some. It took some pretty big liberties with Lilith,
yes.
Right?
Yeah. I'm really curious in terms of the fact that what's going to happen with the construct Ooloi, because I don't think we'll encounter any of them in this book, but the next book is going to be another character that's going to be as we were joking earlier, that the Messiah, the construct Ooloi, that suddenly, like with Akin, they unlock the fertility of the humans, and then all things go to shit, basically. The Oankali realized that what they've done, and the Agja just escape. They're like, okay, see you later, alligator.
They do certainly seem to be anticipating that creating a construct Ooloi might be a problem. So I suppose they might be on top of that in some ways.
To be fair, like if there was any rogue Ooloi that was just like, you know what? Screw this! I'm gonna make a construct Ooloi. That's just the only thing you require, and then that's it. The deed is done.
Yeah. I suppose you don't need much, but they don't seem very keen on acting against consensus, right? That's pretty unusual for them. So if there wasn't a consensus for it, then seems like they might get shut down.
Yeah,
especially if they did something dangerous. Or was perceived as dangerous by consensus.
Yeah, but yeah, the the chapter sort of finishes here with, at the moment, for no reason, T touched Akin, and both in synchronization said the same, to be helped with their distant near synchronization. The Oankali disconnected when they felt that broken bone and started suggesting looking for a sub-adult Ooloi to fix it. At this point, Akin felt a shudder. His whole life he heard about Ooloi children, not male or female. And now he felt that he was just a young, interesting thing, not a living being, where no one would listen to him. And, the chapter ends with Akin wishing to going back to his true home, feeling all alone on this massive ship.
Yeah, it's it definitely doesn't feel as though he's being taken seriously, and the whole conversation about finding an Ooloi subadult is kind of taking place.
It's basically parents are prearranging marriage for kids.
Yep, pretty much. And the kids are not really being involved in it at all.
Yeah.
They're present, and it's being discussed in front of them, but they're not being given any input.
It's pretty crazy that in so many countries still there are like prearranged marriages still happening. Like, parents meeting with parents with like pictures and gifts, and then we're like discussing, who their kids are and stuff like that. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's an odd practice. I mean, I suppose I can see how it made sense, but it seems very anachronistic these days.
It really is. But anyway, I guess let's go to my chapter 6 prediction.
There was one other thing I just wanted to briefly touch on in this chapter, which was the when we kind of came into the ship and we saw kind of a few of the different like branches of the family. Right, there's the Char and the Low branches, and they have like family resemblances. But it's a bit more, like a bit more accentuated than you have in humans because they have this like greater biological flexibility. Yeah. But I thought that whole aspect of the way that this like the different sort of branches of the Oankali family is even like within the kind of main clans, as it were, the main branches of the Toat, the Akjai, and the Dinso. They have their own little kind of slight specializations or differences. Like Akin was remarking on the physical similarity that he had to
the Jar's Ooloi, that was the same height of it.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting little note about the way the Oankali family structure works.
To be fair, it's interesting to like. I'm sure there's some nerd out there who like drew the family trees and maybe some based on the little hints from the book, like created characteristics for each like family tree or like clan, as you called it.
I don't really know if there's. I've not like looked up a lot of fan art of this series. It'd be interesting to see what that yields.
That'd be interesting.
I have to go do some googling. Yeah. But yeah, your chapter 6 predictions.
So Akin was probably going to try to learn how to deal with the condescending behavior towards him and like trying to show that he's not a child. That he experienced much more than the Oankali did on the ship, and maybe potentially he meets his potential Ooloi partner. I don't know. I wasn't certain.
Yeah, there's a number of things that kind of could happen in the next few chapters, right? And like those definitely seem like things that will happen, but they don't really occur quite yet, right? In the next chapter. Although I suppose he meets an Ooloi who kind of takes him more seriously.
Yes. We meet a teacher, Akin's teacher, which, I mean, to be fair, it's interesting, the aspect, like when you, to be fair, this chapter was probably one of the more interesting ones so far, because we get to learn about the biology of the Akjai Oankali that haven't been changed by the trade with the humans. So I think it's one of the more interesting chapters to discuss, to be fair.
Yeah, let's get started then with the chapter summary.
Sure. So the chapter starts with Akin and Chkahichdahk being in a large, dark, open area. Very dark, it says.
Yeah, I just remarked there that the when they say dark, it's like completely dark, but they can see in infrared. Yep. So they can see all of the ship has its infrared glow, and then they can see the body temperature of the different people in the room. Yeah, which we talked a bunch before about infrared vision, but just pointing out that that's what's going on here. Yeah, it's fun.
And Chkahichdahk asking Akin if he is afraid. Only in a bit we learn that they are in the area where the special Ooloi lived, the caterpillar-like Ooloi covered in smooth plates that protected them. These were the same Ooloi that first were to explore the war-ruined Earth. And here's a description of the Ooloi in the book. It had the mouth parts vaguely like those of some terrestrial insects. Even if it had possessed ears and vocal cords, it could not have formed anything close to human or Oankali speech. Yet it was as Oankali as Dichan or Nikanj. It was as Oankali as any intelligent being constructed by an Ooloi to incorporate the Oankali organelle within the cells. As Oankali as Akin himself.
Yeah, and just wanted to note here that the first encounters between humans on the war-ruined Earth and the Oankali may well have been between these like large, scaly, vacuum and radiation-hardened caterpillars with like insect mandible mouths, and you know, the Earth thought Steyr was bad. So
no, absolutely. That's. Can you imagine? Like you're one of the remnants, and there's this massive caterpillar just slowly walking towards you. It's just like, the radiation is making my mind just go crazy.
Yeah, so we just had a nuclear war, and now there are giant alien caterpillar insect mandible thingamajiggies.
Can you imagine all those conspiracy theories, like the Earth is hollow and there's like aliens inside of it, like, and the people are like, yeah, that was true. That was what's happening, and it's crazy.
Yep. And I seem to remember, like way back in the first book, there was something about the Oankali having to like sedate humans when they caught them because they were terrified.
Yes, I think so.
Like this may be why.
Yeah, now we know the reason.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, so these were the Oankali, one trade before they found Earth. One trade before they used their long memories and vast store of genetic material to construct speaking, hearing, and bipedal children. Children that would be more acceptable for humans. I mean, didn't do that such a great job, to be fair.
A little bit, right? Yeah. But I thought it was a really fascinating thing, right? Because they clearly anticipated they were going to be meeting the humans, and they had some kind of limited information about them. And then the fact that they had the ability to revive a spoken language that they just hadn't used at all
for probably millennia.
That's another kind of. I mean, it's interesting they even had a spoken language in the first place, right? That there was one that existed that they could go back to, given that it seems like they're.
I mean, to be fair, I bet there's some like Oankali nerd that was like trying to remember the speech just because, like, and writing essays about like, oh, this sentence should be pronounced this way because of the third trade in the star system, blah blah blah, because, you know, stuff like that. I can imagine somebody being like that.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, there's probably also. I mean, if it was going all the way back to like when the Ooloi were like first integrating some other intelligent species into their biology, then they had some language, then I suppose there may be things where, you know, they need some neologisms, right? They don't have all the words they need for some of the things, so maybe they had to make up a bunch of new stuff.
Possibly.
That's
I mean, to be fair, like, what are words? They're just expressions to explain certain things, and even in the English lexicon you don't have you borrow words from other languages because some languages have descriptions of certain concepts that are hard to describe in English language. But to be fair, like, I just tried to think of how could you even translate a feeling like communication to a spoken communication, right? Like, how can you imagine being like the first bipedal Oankali and you're like, God, this is so tiring just to talk. Can we not just like communicate normally?
Yeah, that's it seems odd that they'd even have had a spoken language. So I'm wondering if maybe they got that from another trade. Maybe that's what. Maybe it came from, like, because whatever the root for the Oankali Ooloi organelle thing tree may well just have had its own like chemical based communication thing all the way back, and they integrated with someone else who had a spoken language at some point.
Potentially.
No. That makes the most sense, come to think about
but then,
it. I think.
But then the thing is, there's a hole in this theory because we know from book 1 that the Oankali only have met, like, the humans were the first that intelligent species. So although I suppose it doesn't necessarily. I mean,
I suppose there's a question of like what range of intelligence we're talking about, right? So it might be there was another species capable of language that wasn't quite as intelligent as the humans, but still had language. But yeah, we don't know.
Ewoks.
I don't know. They're pretty smart.
I mean, yeah. I mean, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like, but like,
yeah, it's hard to say what that would look like. But yeah, the absence of another similarly intelligent species in the history perhaps puts that makes that a slightly less plausible theory. But hey,
also
they figured out how to make a language.
But also, you put an interesting comment here.
About how far in advance they would have like known. Yeah, because if they were planning to become vaguely human-like, if they became bipedal and they developed a spoken language, then presumably they did that just based on our radio signals that they were picking up as they came in. To like, I assume that's how they found us, right? That would be the obvious way to find a civilization if you were just drifting through, would be to find some ordered radio signals and trace them back to the point of origin. So I'm guessing they just like inferred what they did to make a spoken language and the rest of it from our like radio and television broadcast radio signals.
I see. It's interesting.
And there's a fun tool, or not tool, like data visualization, I suppose you might call it, called Lightyear.fm, which shows like how far out into space a broadcast from a given time is based on like top charting music.
I see.
Yeah. So if you go to that webpage, Lightyear.fm, and you load it up, it just like slowly zooms you out from Earth, and it moves. So the time is going backwards as you get further from Earth, because that's the distance in light years that you are away. So that's how far the radio signal has got, and it goes back through the catalog of what would have been on the radio at the time for about 110 light years. Right. So it would have been.
I never thought about this. Can you imagine, like, you're an alien and you're like, you just start to get like, well, the first radio was created when late 1900s.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, I think the earliest radio broadcast with like enough power to get anywhere, I think, is kind of like in the I don't know, like 1915, something like that.
So basically, the aliens would first hear some blues and jazz music. Solid. I'm up for that. Then it would become more of the probably some pop rock, and then rock and metal. Solid.
No. Well, I mean, you can go and find out.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna listen to that. I'm curious what were like the top charts, but like, yeah, I mean, the Oankali would probably have Oankali. The aliens would probably could like the historians or would be like, yeah, this is the creation of the human music. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, I never thought about this up until now, that that the history of the music, the radios, the waves that we send could potentially still send some music over to out in space.
Yeah, I mean, it's only like I mean, in the late 80s, it would have been like a 90-ish light year radius of radio signal. So it's not gotten very far yet. I mean, the diameter of the Milky Way is what, like 100,000, 200,000 light years, something in that general order of magnitude. So, like, it's just a very small sphere of where you might be able to find a very faint radio signal.
Yeah. Still.
But yeah, it's fun to, because the way this visualization works, it shows you all the stars, right? So you can be like, what would you be listening to if you were at, Alpha Centauri?
And they're like, God damn, why do we have to listen to this garbage? Why can't we like...
Yeah. There's a bit in Futurama about that with...
I really need to watch Futurama, but I'm like, I'm sort of not doing it because I know that like it was stopped. And a lot of people like... It's
totally worth it. It's... watch all of Futurama. It's great.
Okay, will do.
Yeah. You don't get very many like algebraic topology jokes in in cartoons. There's not very many of them in Futurama, but there's a couple.
Okay. Well then, let's come back from the tangent here. So the Akjai Ooloi extended one of its forelimbs for Akin to connect. It had 6 of such limbs, and the language they communicated was one of the Akin felt before his birth. And as the Akjai was being interested in Akin, the same was for the boy. Chkahichdahk joined. And for the first time, Akin realized what an Ooloi communication was. A complete blending of 2 beings, 1 nervous system. When Akin said he doesn't understand, they showed him what was happening, the incredible unity between them. And before he could even feel any terror, it all stopped. How did they not lose themselves in the connection? How were they able to break that connection? In Akin's mind, it was as if the 2 buckets of water were mixed together, and then this connection was reassembling the water molecules into their respective buckets. He must have signaled this. The Akjai responded, even at your stage growth, Eka, you can perceive molecules. We perceive subatomic particles. Making and breaking this contact is no more difficult for us than clasping and releasing hands is for humans. I mean, I can imagine it being horrifying, but reassembling a water bucket, a bucket, putting respective water molecules in buckets, is just like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, I mean, that's sort of, it feels like an analogy for how it feels subjectively to do that, like mentally, but I don't think it's an actual like physical analogy to this process, right? Because when they talk about what they actually do physically, they don't meld together into one being. They just connect and are able to kind of perceive themselves as one being, right? I mean, the analogy that I kind of came up with was like, Akin got like a firmware update so that he can now use other people's bodies as peripherals, right? They're able to interface with one another's nervous systems to such a degree that they feel like it's an extension of their own, but it's not like there's not a physical thing that's dissolving or mixing in the way that a collection of water would be and then unmixing back, because they still retain physically separate characteristics in that sense. It's kind of a mental analogy. So I'm not sure why the perception of subatomic particles is useful for this process.
No, to be fair, I agree, because I mean, you have 2 nervous systems, 2, let's say, independent nervous systems that are connected suddenly. I mean, I just cannot imagine like this sort of, probably the closest that we have of something that is like co-joined twins, when you have 2 nervous systems in one body in a way. But like even then, it's, you have this in most of the cases, like you have independent thoughts, and although they share the body, it's like there's nothing there to blend those consciousness. They just really know, I don't know. It just feels to me like it's...
But like the control of the nervous system has kind of, or it appears in some ways to have this sort of modular hierarchical nature to it, wherein, you can have 2 separate like control devices, 2 separate brains that are sending different signals, and, like the body will receive and handle those signals independently fine and send them back to both places independently fine. It's a bit more like plugging in a computer peripheral, right? You can have a peripheral that's connected to multiple computers, and the signals can go to both and be sent to outputs to both. It's but
it is a weird concept, I think, but I do agree. I don't understand why the perception of subatomic particles. That's not really like such a big deal, though in biology, because in a lot of cases it happens. Like our bodies can perceive subatomic particles anyway. Like the best example,
like constraints on
but like best examples is like, for example, a smell. We are capable of detecting whether a hydrogen atom on a molecule is in one position or another. So it's not like,
I mean, I say in that case it is kind of at the level of atoms, because it is actually perceiving an individual covalently bonded molecule. It's perceiving differences in its chemistry. That's not quite subatomic, but where it gets kind of a bit more edge casey is when you have something that's ionized in some way, right? Or something that is like dissolved into, because then you have or electrical currents where you have free electrons of one kind or another, right? So if you have an electron that's not actually tied down to a specific atom, then that you can potentially perceive that individual electron in some kind of multiplying process, or a proton. There's a bunch of stuff where you could potentially have an ion channel that will let one proton pass that could, in theory, be amplified up to a signal that you could perceive. Yeah. And we already have that with things like photons, right? So our retinas are actually sensitive enough to perceive a single photon.
Yep. So it's a weird description. I don't know if it's like, but I guess it's, like to show that the Ooloi are on another level of conceptual understanding of things, I guess. Unless they can understand even like things like quarks, then that's
yeah. So the biology is not going to get you to subnuclear stuff. The energy levels are not commensurate with that. Yeah,
but who knows? Yeah. But yeah, Akin asks if it's because they are Ooloi, but all Oankali can do this. Ooloi can perceive and manipulate, whereas males and females only perceive. What Akin felt wasn't even such a deep union. It is used for teaching and consensus. They would try to teach Akin how to tolerate, and so they started manipulating his nervous system by drugging him. Nice. Each time his body was trying to panic, he would be given another spike of endorphins. But it wasn't a complete intoxication. There was enough control left to ensure that Akin is learning to suppress all the discomfort by himself. And Akin did after some time. He discovered that he could perceive through the other being, that it could see through the electromagnetic radiation. It could feel any part of the ship, its circulatory system, and even outside of the nearest plates. This contact with the ship was maintained with the feet of the Ooloi, and Akin realized that Chkahichdahk was also doing the same with his. The chapter ends with Akin wondering how these untaught people can give such a strong, versatile bodies to trade with humans, to which both Ooloi responded, because he doesn't know his own potential. Chkahichdahk then takes Akin to teach him about Tilio and how to understand and treat them, and that's where the chapter ends.
Yeah, it's a kind of interesting little wrap up, right? He gets that gets to experience this blending thing, this melding of consciousnesses that they do, or more of Again, it seems. I mean, it's interesting because there's this kind of description of him like having a sensation of loss of identity. Right, he's kind of losing himself into this connection, but then for the most part, it's described a lot more as though he just has this kind of additional sensory capability, but without necessarily having lost his. I mean, I suppose it might be this whole kind of question around like how embodied cognition and how the model that you have of your own physical body and that being tied up with some sense of identity. So like losing that in order to perceive what the other people are perceiving, and also getting all of the kind of physiological feedback from their bodies, and so you get an impression of what their emotions are as well, would give you
no, absolutely. So in the book, actually, it says that for Akin, for a second, it felt like what the humans were describing as being a god, like that this embodied consciousness that he became, that were
being a soul
in a way. Yes. And but in the same time being in control, being aware of like your own and other bodies, but at the same time being like a drifting consciousness. It's, I think, it's an interesting concept. I can imagine like, how do I describe this? Like it's when his own limitations of the body have stopped, and now he's a bigger part of something. Like often people, I don't know, describe a consciousness of, like, for example, of plant. Like, although that's a very far-fetched thing, but I would say that the general sort of connection between the organisms, that's sort of how it felt, possibly, while being aware of yourself.
Perhaps, yeah. It's odd. I mean, it might be more like kind of the sort of the locus of your attention, maybe, because I mean, if you meditate and then you pay attention to a specific part of your body, right, you notice a lot more of like the feedback you're getting from that part of you, right? So this kind of sense of like non-locality of consciousness, but extended to another body to which you're connected, and so you can kind of pay attention to like someone else's big toe as opposed to your own big toe.
Sure.
But still have like the same. I don't know. It's it certainly sounds trippy.
I just imagine like if humans were like, you join with some humans and you share the consciousness and you just for fun you slap another person, you make the other person slap themselves, and you both feel the pain. It's such a weird thing, isn't it? Holy hell. Maybe one day we'll experience that if our brains will be connected into like massive computers and be like, disembodied consciousnesses.
I mean, there is kind of the illusory versions of that I think I've heard people with who've had like psychedelic experiences, which is somewhat analogous to this. And then there's also like the psychology experiment with the mirror and the hand.
Yes.
With the rubber arm, where they can like set up a mirror and then put like a rubber hand, and they'll like brush the hand with a brush and brush your hand at the same time and do a couple of other things, and then like whack the hand with a mallet and you flinch. Because it feels as though it's like your arm. It's a very strange psychological thing about the way that we model our bodies.
I think this is a lot of also important for like this model has been used for people who lost limbs and still felt the phantom limb pain, like that was associated with the loss of it. And in a lot of cases there's like it actually did help for people to reduce the tension that was still felt by the brain, even though the limb wasn't there. It's but to utilize that mirror trick. But yeah, it's I mean, how evil have to be when you're like sort of stroking them and then suddenly you hammer the rubber hand. Like I would generally like, I can imagine people flinching. I can imagine just flinching anyway, but ugh.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a few like more subtle things than just like hit it with a mallet, but like that's one of the ones that has a fun dramatic result to share around. But yeah, it's like because you get like the ghost impression, right? You see them like put a pointy thing on the back of the hand, and you like feel as though there's something pointy on the back of your hand. It's very strange.
Yeah. Well then, let's go to my chapter 7 prediction.
Sure.
So, I'm not sure. I think that Akin is going to spend more time with the Agja Ooloi, trying to learn about the abilities that the Ooloi have, and maybe trying to understand what he can do and will be able to do as an adult. Something like just trying to think about his own sort of like mission of what he wants to reach with as a adult construct, and in terms of, I'm talking about for humans.
Okay, yeah. So learn some more things from this Ooloi mentor that he's developed, and and then maybe we'll get around to the sub-adult Ooloi with Chkahichdahk.
I mean, I'm sure it's gonna happen, not now, but as always, things will happen, but not when Michael wants it.
Yeah, I mean, like I still think some of the predictions we should probably count as valid for like this thing is going to happen, even
it's
if
not gonna
like
happen
exactly
now,
when is. Yeah, you should.
Damn you, Octavia Butler, of your different timings each time.
See if you can improve on guessing when the thing will happen,
if I did, then I'll
happen.
become I'll be able to tell people's futures. Yeah, this is great practice. I need to do it. We need to do it more and more and often, so that eventually I'll become a professional. Like I have years of experience on predicting people's future, although it's from a book, but still.
It's all laws of narrative imperative, right? It doesn't necessarily apply to reality.
But but yeah, I guess that's
one final thing before we wrap up. If you enjoyed the Lightyear FM data visualization with sound incorporated, there's a podcast called Loud Numbers, which is about using music as a data visualization medium, which is fun. So if that tickled your fancy, then that might also.
I'll definitely put those in the references when I edit the episode, so that people can check out those links. Sounds very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess on that amazing note, thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
No pun intended.
We were Xenothesis. You can find all the places we upload our podcast on xenothesis.com. I was Michael Glinka.
I was Richard Acton. Goodbye.
Bye.